Somebody mentioned that Pyong Yang plays this creepy synth opera at 6 a.m. every day on loudspeakers. And I recalled, I wanted to hear it, so I looked it up. First I got the opera as intended, and I quite liked it musically. I really go for that eerie electronica style. And then I found the one that the tourist had taken with the loudspeakers, and I sat watching the city views and feeling the same strange sense of disquiet and unease, the uncanny valley, this appears to be something that it's not. This is not what it appears to be. It's the one that causes bullies to bug with nerds, and it's the one that makes people think androids look creepy. The uncanny valley in the city had that effect. The people were there. The city was built like any modern city with all of the infrastructure necessary for a modernized people. But the lifestyles being lived within that modern city were still 18th century lifestyles. They had bicycles, there were machines around, but for the most part, they're sweeping empty streets by hand. There's no cars parked anywhere. They're dumping milk from plastic buckets from, people who have a cow into a giant truck that plies the street. There's a meter maid on a stand where, they've got the electricity, they have everything they need. Why don't they have stoplights? So when you walk up to an intersection in a western city, there's these lights flashing, and they're flashing the signal crossings constantly. Well, that's what this girl was doing on her pedestal with an umbrella above her head. And to an empty intersection, she was turning routinely, looking, and with a soldier's precision, like it was a dance she had learned, and moving her arms around at nobody, directing traffic that didn't exist. There were no parked cars. It was really strange. Everything was bicycles, hand carts, and the occasional service van. There was a vehicle that came through periodically. But for the most part, it was all foot traffic. And I thought, this is the thing that's so peculiar, is they've built these cities that appear to be full modern cities, but they haven't actually upgraded the lifestyles. That's a very strange thing. Here, I'll play you the sound of that audio. And that's why the city's quiet enough that you can broadcast loudspeakers. If you try that in a modern city in the West, the noise of all the motors and machines and work tools would completely drown out the loudspeakers. There would be no way to broadcast music like that. You'd have to have speakers on every street corner. And don't think for a minute that the punks around here wouldn't take them out with rocks. The first time this damn thing went off at 6 a.m., half the neighborhood would be out with rocks, bats, crossbows, shotguns, whatever they had in their hands, and they'd be shooting the speakers out. I'm the sort of person that would climb up with a ladder and a balaclava on my head and dismantle it. Some wire clippers. That's an end to your damn speakers. So it's an interesting thing that there's a country in the world where they can pull that off. And even with really rigid and dangerous controls, that they can pull it off at all is interesting. I don't have any judgments about what it says. But I have noticed that Asian people are much more comfortable with the idea of being part of a great flock, a herd, a mass. They do think of themselves as sheeple, and they're not ashamed in the least. They're proud of it. They're proud of their sheepish qualities. And, I'm sure a sheep is not ashamed of itself either, and it can point out a whole lot of reasons why sheep are one of the oldest domesticated animals on the planet and have great value to us. So, this Western idea that you have to be the lone wolf preying on the sheep. Where'd we get that idea anyway, and why? Why is that something we want? Why would we encourage that in our children and in our society, this idea that you have to be a lone wolf? Now, I'm not for communism. I don't like the idea that some joker down the street can grab my kayak, wreck it on the rocks, and then it's my problem to fix it because I'm the kayak running person. I don't know. And there's not enough kayaks. There's never enough kayaks. And every time you want to go ride your kayak, you don't have a kayak because it's the community's kayak. Somebody else has it. To me, that's what communism is. I prefer socialism, where you pitch in. You pitch in and you help each other, and everybody gets taken care of, and they're well enough taken care of to be able to maximize on their own personal potential and give back. When you've got people growing up with nothing but scar tissue in their brains and a burning need to relieve themselves of pain, they're not useful. These are not human beings that are useful. They're either an obstacle on the sidewalk or an obstacle on the social care system, one way or another. And only if you start caring for your citizens from cradle to grave can they be healthy enough to find their personal potentials and give it back to you. But it's not going to be about profit if you're doing it that way. When a family works, generally 100% of the profit from that family's efforts goes back into supporting itself. It eats better. The beds get softer. The dental care gets more frequent. They get better glasses. They look after themselves better. They put it back into self-care. But a corporation doesn't do that, even though it is like a family. It's a collection of human beings who all need to be cared for. Somehow, the profit, however, doesn't go back into that self-care. It goes off, it goes off to somewhere else, and we don't even know where the heck it went. We can point at some shadowy characters and say, this guy made too much money, but really, it's a system that allows money to evaporate like that should be an issue. That the fact that your efforts and your resources are being removed even as you produce them. Your energy is being taken from you, and what's being given back is less than what you're putting in. You're not getting a profit from your energy. Someone else is getting it. That's the problem I have with capitalism as we're seeing it. So somewhere in the middle, a form of socialism where you can get ahead enough to feel like there's an end to your misery, but not, where there's enough for everybody. Not where you think you're better than everybody because of how much you have. But I still want to know that there are people out there who are capable of commanding vast amounts of capital and arbitrarily deciding where they go, because it's from that we got SpaceX and Tesla. And I really appreciate those companies. And PayPal. I love me some PayPal. I appreciate those things. And that's part of the capitalist system. So I don't want to see the system ripped to shreds and built all over again through revolution. I want to see the system taken back by the people. I want the people to stand up and take back the reins of control and find a balance between the two. Control by the people, for the people, not by the corporations. That's what I'd like to see. One of the most ridiculous rules out there is that a corporation can be considered an entity, a person. That boils my blood.